it's a different kind of city.
I just got, the mayor's gonna do a hard reboot of her system. I guess she got, after the ag meeting, it became an issue, so she's, has that issue again. So just give us a few minutes, John.
Okay. Aaron, I was going to ask you a question. You mentioned you might be able to share that presentation on your end, right?
Yes, the clerk's department has the copy of it. So if you want them to put it on the screen, they can, or alternatively, you can share your screen.
It would be better for me because I find when I share my screen, I can't see the face of the committee members anymore. It's happened to me a few times. So if you could share on that other one, it would be great.
Teresa, are you able to share the presentation then when it gets to that section?
Yes, Kevin's just coming in. He's going to try to do the share, but if he can't get in, I will definitely do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can share here too as well, but I'm saying I've had it happen for me before in Teams specifically. The rest of the committee disappears and I'm talking to my computer and I can't see anyone.
No, absolutely. We can do it from our end.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good now. Sorry, everyone. So good morning. Just a quick...
Mayor Chop, I don't believe we have quorum yet.
Oh, I thought we had that, Tom. Okay, my apologies.
Oh, there we go. Councillor Michelle's back. We're good now.
4 or 5, yeah, okay. So just a quick reminder that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and I'd ask that you could please turn your phones off. Please use the Microsoft Teams hand raise icon to be called upon and remove it after you are finished speaking. I'll now call the special council meeting to order. The agenda is before you for approval. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. All those in favor? And Councillor Michelle? That's carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Taylor, did you have something you want to add?
Yes, I just see the green screen is still on the council chambers there. I'm wondering if we are in live.
There you go.
That should be better. Perfect.
And then I think we're just moving right into the presentation this morning. Welcome, John. Thanks for joining us, and I will turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, good. So I just want to start by saying thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to working with everyone. Now, I've been told by Jason I have 10 minutes for the presentation, and then we're going to have a Q&A afterwards. Is that correct? I always like being respectful of time.
That's correct. I mean, if you need an extra few minutes with this topic, you go ahead. But if we can keep it to around 10, that would be perfect.
Yeah, so 10 is fine for me. So that's our initial slide. So if we go to the next one about the agenda. So I just want to cover off a couple things today in our 10 minutes. So one, I guess, I'm assuming everyone's read our proposal, but if you haven't, I just want to talk a little bit about Waterhouse, our firm, and who we are and the kind of work we've done. I'll probably speak a little bit about our project team right now, just because I don't have a slide for that. In terms of myself, I'm John Stengavich. I'll be the lead recruiter for the project. I've done a fair amount of work in the broader public sector. Last year, so I've probably done about, myself personally, about 10 municipal searches. some with upper tier, some with the lower tier. Most of the work we've done has been sort of outside of the GTA in rural communities, such as yours, and we just recently did the hospital CO in your community as well. So I don't profess to be an expert in Norfolk County, but I'm soon becoming an expert. And then I grew up in Hamilton, so having grown up in Hamilton, we used to visit, or I personally used to visit Long Point, Port Dover, so I drive through your community quite a bit. I do have two other recruiters to support me. We are a national team. My colleague Grant Smith, he works out in Western Canada. Paul Krotos out in Central Canada. And Grant's background, he used to work as a national municipal sector practice lead for PwC. So he has a wealth of experience in this particular sector as well. And most of Grant's work is like mine. We do more work outside of the large urban communities and do more work in rural. And then we have a director of research who will be supporting us during the project. So that's a bit about the team. I have a couple slides. One slide, which is kind of my master slide, I dedicate to the executive search process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that slide. I'm just going to give the highlights of it. And then I want to talk about different steps in our process. Probably it's covered in the master slide, but a few things to understand about how we work and so forth. And the process may seem rigid, but I want to point out to the client, I guess to the group, we do like to customize to your needs. So when you see things in there, it's not rigid. It's only suggested process. And obviously, when we start a search, we're going to listen and then adjust as needed. And then the last part, I understand that sooner than later would be the operative for this assignment. So I took the liberty to put a couple dates in what we feel we can achieve. So I'll be looking for your input on the dates. And then obviously, if there's questions, we can ask questions at the end. So is there anything on the agenda that we need to add? I guess not. We've gone to the next slide. Well, I guess if there's a question, I was going to suggest if you just raise your hand as we go along. So if we just go to the About Waterhouse slide, fairly typical slide here, but I'll just speak a bit about our firm. So national firm, we've got about 20 plus resources work across Canada. Most of my work is in Ontario. Me personally, I've done, 80% of my work is broader public sector, and same thing with my colleagues. We use technology to support the work that we do, almost in every facet and how we do things. So we have data from prior projects, and we also make it a point when we do work for any new client that we use data to advantage. And in every search we're doing this original research. And then we do have a process on how we go about doing things. Public sector, I think it's fairly important to have a process you follow, because basically getting to the outcome is very important, but then we always get the question how we achieve the outcome. So I think a search needs to be very transparent. It's got to be evidence-based, and we have to have a repeatable process focused on outcomes and delivery. So that's just a quick highlight of process or the firm. So if we go to the next slide. This is an overview of probably, if for those of you who read the proposal, it's about 8 pages or so on the process, but I just want to sort of, if you look at sort of the phases at the top and the deliverables at the bottom, and I'll just go over this one pretty quickly in about a minute to 2 minutes. When we start a search, the most important thing is understanding the need. And I look at understanding a need actually going beyond what's in the position profile. The position profile details and some of the experience and characteristics you're looking for. Most important to us when we start a search is engaging with the stakeholders. And in this case, it's likely going to be the selection committee and possibly the senior staff, and understanding what some of the initial challenges are when you get here. I've read your strategic priorities, so I have an appreciation of some of the issues, and also knowing your community have that. But what I really want to hear is from each individual committee member, what are some of the short and long-term priorities that help shape what kind of candidates we look for. And then candidates are also interested when they're considering this particular role, what the challenges are outside of the position profile. So that's kind of fundamental to starting any search. That process itself takes about a week or two. If you want to launch the process sooner, what we might recommend in this instance is launching the ad by either later today or tomorrow. and then doing the stakeholder consultations as we go along. It's likely not going to alter the experience profile, but it'll just give us more insight into what kind of candidates we're looking for as we're doing the search. And really kind of an outcome of that understanding the need. We do the survey, we prepare a report to council, similar to what we're doing now. We'll have a short presentation. If you need a comp survey to know what people are making in other communities, we'd have a comp survey as well. And then from there, we go into the next stage, which is identification. More in a following slide, but just very simply, identification of candidates is sort of looking at different streams to consider candidates. So one stream is basically research. That's our own direct outreach to candidates. Another stream would be advertising. Third one would be referrals. And the last stream, often there's internal candidates to consider. So we look at those candidates as well. An outcome out of that really is a long list that I work with. A long list could be as short as 15, could be as long as 30 candidates. I review the candidates myself with the research team. The ones that look very promising, I interview. When I present to the selection committee, I categorically put candidates in groupings. So one group is ones I recommend. There's another group for discussion. And a third one would be often paper qualified people, but don't meet the bar of what you're looking for. And then from there, I work with the committee to actually come up with the recommendations for interview. And as we're doing that, we also talk about different kinds of assessment tools and so forth. And then from there, we help facilitate the latter part, which is selection committee interviews. Normally, we recommend a two-stage process. The first stage is really focusing on experience of the candidates to make sure they have all the abilities to do the job. The second round generally focus more on fit. The committee's established that all the candidates can do the job. So then you're looking at who's going to fit best for your particular role. And then from there, we do references, background checks, social media checks. And if there's an interest in psychometric assessments, we integrate those as part of our process as well. And then from there, if things go well, we'll have a higher outcome, which would be a successful candidate signing an offer. So that's generally the process in a high level. Any questions on that one before I go to the next slide?
Any questions from councillors? I can't see all of you on the screen, so just feel free to jump in if you have anything. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide. Okay, it went forward for me. So this is just a breakdown of phase one. So when I start a search, I gather information about the organization. Like I've already printed your strategic plan. I have your financial statements. I have the org chart. It's good for me to know kind of the compensation benefits. Attractors to the community. I have some ideas myself, but as I do the stakeholder surveys, it would be good to know what appeals to everyone about living in the community. So hearing your thoughts on that. The survey I send out that I recommend when I start a research it's fairly straightforward. I send an email to all of the committee members. And when I send an email, I'm really asking opportunities, what are some of the success measures? And then I want to kind of revisit the background to a certain degree, just to understand what needs to be emphasized. And I guess when I start a search, I always turn to my committees to get input as to who they think I should be surveying. So from my point of view, I think it's essential for me to talk to all of the selection committee. And then in many cases, I find committees may suggest to me, well, it'd be good to hear what the staff have to say, and including the staff as part of the process sometime and just sharing their input often is good because staff do want to contribute in the process as well. But when I get the comments back, it's shared in an aggregate format, so everything remains confidential. So I guess maybe at this point, I just have a quick question for the committee. On phase one, who do you see us surveying for this particular role? Do you see us surveying mayor and all of council, or do you see mayor, all of council plus senior staff? And sometime often committees may suggest include some community stakeholders too.
Well, I think likely probably myself and all of council would make sense. I think we're fortunate here as well that Jason's staying on for a long transition period. So I think we've discussed this as council already as well, and his involvement in the process. And certainly, that there's, that ability to reach out to our SLT team as well, I think. The challenge for our SLT team is everybody's relatively new. So.
Yeah.
Mayor Chop, if I may, Councillor Martin here. I would like to see a broader stakeholder engagement. I would be leaning more towards mayor, all of council, senior staff, as well as some community stakeholder groups. I think that a lot of the community will be very invested in this next candidate that we bring in. And in the initial first phase, it makes more sense to me to go a little bit broader and then narrow down as we continue on. So I would advocate for also including some community stakeholders in that.
Okay. We could actually come to decision of that at the end, because when I step through the process, there'll be kind of actions and outcomes. So that's excellent input. Any other questions on this slide? Okay. If not, I'll move on then. This is just, once again, this is our phase 2, but just kind of a little more detail so it's clear. Generally speaking, when we do research, I always like to think every search we do from a client, even if we have a pool of candidates, it always stems to original research, because I think we have an obligation to inform everyone that the role is out there. And I like to think that the process itself, a well-designed process, always looks at identifying the best candidates out of it. So in this particular case, we do think that the search, and this is without doing our stakeholder consultation, because normally the consultation shapes where we're going to look. But in this case here, we would look within Ontario. So we look at obviously lower tier, single tier, upper tier to make sure we're certain. I guess part of my stakeholder consultation would be, is there an openness to look at business leaders who might fit the municipal sector? Some committees say yes, other committees say no. So that's often a discussion point. Invariably, even the clients who say bring us a good business leader end up hiring someone who knows a lot about municipal. So that's been my experience. And then we do extend nationally as well. And sometimes clients have preferences. They'd say, well, we want a different kind of leadership. So that's really kind of up to the committee to guide us a bit. We'll offer input and advice, but we like hearing your ideas. And the level we target for the role, obviously someone who's either operating at the leadership level now, or basically they have lots of ability to operate at the level. Where we recommend advertising, I like being inclusive with advertising. It never hurts to have more ads out than less ads. In your case, we recommend our site, your site, LinkedIn, and then all of the traditional municipal sites. What you can normally expect, I guess, when we're preparing a long list, is where the long list would have less than 15 candidates. Often long lists have more, but we do categorically organize information for you. So even if you get 20 candidates, you're not overwhelmed, organized and clear. So that's kind of our sourcing approach. Any questions on that one, or should I just move on? Okay, I'll move on. Next slide is evaluation selection. And once again, this is kind of the phases 3 and 4 of the project. Our research team does most of the initial calls. What we're really looking for is, I'm going to call it ability, experience, and reputation, with reputation probably being the most important thing, because past behavior typically is an indicator of future behavior. So we are looking for good leaders who basically want to be part of your community and can add value. Researcher does the first call, they do interviews, they collect resumes, they speak with me. I determine which candidates are appropriate. I do the same thing, I telephone interview, and the ones I like, I do an in-person interview. So when I meet with the committee, I'll be able to share a bit more about the candidates and their backgrounds and interests. When candidates are presented a long list, I have often prepare a short executive brief. I have a template and a framework that I have them work with. It's a 2-page report they prepare themselves as why they're ideal. We have a resume, and then we help committees with different kind of assessment tools and questions as we go forward in the process. And then once again, as we talked about earlier, when we do the selection committee interviews, round 1 really focuses on experience and ability, and the round 2 interviews are more focused on fit. And those questions would be more situational. We'd have possibly presentations on their view of top priorities. And then we do integrate psychometric assessments into the final stages. The psychometric assessments are meant to be more informative rather than a tool to say yes or no. It's just additional insight to gain on how candidates operate. And then the last part is referencing. We believe in thorough referencing, which means prior supervisors, social media checks, credential verification, and then whatever other kind of record checking we need. Any questions? Okay, I'm on to our last slide. So what I've done here, I've taken the liberty to put some dates in because I'm making the general assumption you don't want to be without a CAO for a long time. So I tried being as aggressive as I could with time while compromising the quality of the search. So generally speaking, the reason I put dates in, I think it's important for everyone to kind of look at the dates and let me know what dates you can or can't do. Because if we want to be efficient with process and move things through quickly, it's important to establish the dates within the next day or two. So we can either do this now, or basically there could be someone on your end who could coordinate with mayor and council whether these dates work, and then put them in the calendar. It's also good for the candidates because most of the candidates you're hiring have busy schedules themselves. So if I let them know of dates a month or two in advance, nobody misses dates and the process becomes fairly organized and efficient. So, and then this is really the last slide. So the next step. Okay, so can we take this off screen share unless we need it up anymore? Thanks. So are there any questions?
Any further questions from council members? Doesn't look like I mean, I think the timelines that you have there are pretty reasonable. Oh, sorry, Councillor Van Passen, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I like the timelines, they're reasonable. I think that old saying, like, you want a job done, find the busiest guy you know. You're looking for a busy guy. They'll get it done quick. They like that type timeline. And, you know, the type of candidate that I'd like you to look for, I think is, because we're close to the lake, I'll use the ship analogy that a couple of years ago we came on this council, found out that nobody was steering the ship. It was heading for the rocks, and it was going to crash soon. Now, over the last 2 years, we have turned the ship around. We've got a great team in place. We just need somebody who can hold that tiller steady for a little while. You know, there's going to be some small adjustments when the wind comes up or a storm is brewing or the waves are high, but we've got the ship heading the right way, and we just need somebody that can run her steady. And, you know, it's not a good thing when the CAO of a municipality makes the headlines every week in the local newspaper. So we want somebody who just gets the work done behind the scenes, and we keep going the way we're going. So
Appreciate that.
Anything further from council? Councillor Columbus.
Yes, just I got on here late because I had technical difficulties. Just to mention that what this municipality needs is stability, and we don't want a 9-to-5er. We need somebody like Mr. Burgess, who's there almost 24 hours a day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything further from anyone? So the idea then, John.
Sorry, Mary, I saw it, and you might not have it pinned, but Councillor Taylor has his hand up.
Oh, Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Are we expecting the first stage of the interviews with council to go out today, just to get that scheduled in? Just curious, John, when you're expecting that to go
out. The council interviews? Well, okay, so I guess a few things. I had a couple questions to ask then. So I would like to start the stakeholder surveys as soon as possible. So my thinking on the particular process, and I've spoken with Aaron in HR, I've looked at your old position profile. It's reasonable in terms of characterization of what we're looking for a CAO. So I was going to make a few updates to the profile today. I was going to send a copy to Aaron for review and circulation to the committee. So what I'd like to do is be launching with the ad by tomorrow, as long as the committee's comfortable. And then I want to start my stakeholder surveys. Like when I say start, send out an email to all of the participants by tomorrow with the goal of completing it in about probably 5 to 8 days to get everything done. Because, and that's really, you get a short survey, 4 questions, ideally respond in writing, and then I follow up with a phone call. So what I would need as well is knowing who I'm surveying. So it's clear I'm doing the mayor and all of council, and I need a decision from the committee. Am I going to be surveying senior staff? And it's sort of like it's a, you know, I'm looking for a yes or no on that. And then if there's other community members to survey, I need a categoric list of who to survey. And I make it clear to everyone that the comments are held confidential to the selection committee. They're shared in aggregate format. So we just want to make sure that we're getting the appropriate comments. So it's really a committee choice to decide who I survey.
Well, I think senior staff is likely a given here from everyone.
Okay.
Including Mr. Burgess himself. And Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Chop, to John. What is typical of community stakeholders when you keep referencing, you know, what is something, what are stakeholder or groups that you would previously go to for this type of information?
It varies from community to community. I find typically if I do a CAO search, I may not do community stakeholders. Like for example, Gravenhurst, I'm doing one now. They had a business improvement group. So they thought that's fairly important that I survey them. And they also had a local chamber of commerce. And that's, they thought it's important I survey those groups as well. When I did the hospitals, well, often when I do hospital searches, there's many partners who work in conjunction with the hospital. So in that particular case, we may survey other stakeholders. So it varies from group to group. It depends on who you think is important that influences the business of the municipality. But I would say on this particular one, the council and senior staff are a good representation of what we need to survey. But it's really the council call, not my call.
I think the challenge is once you start including 1 or 2, or then it becomes, you know, many groups start feeling left out across the county as well. Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Wondering if there's some kind of internal surveying through our own communications and social media that we would be able to do with our stakeholder groups, thinking of the BIAs and chambers, as well as, you know, there's so many community groups that we deal with, that we would be able to produce some survey results that would be helpful directly to John in a very short period of time in the next few weeks. And it's really anybody who can get at it can provide some type of feedback, and we would be able to pass it along to you directly. I think it's very important to get some type of community stakeholder information here, and I'm not the expert to say this group should or shouldn't be included, but I think it's a very important position for our community, for our corporation, for our staff, for our community members, and a lot of people are going to be invested in filling this position. So that is why I would advocate for some more community stakeholder engagement. But again, I don't know, that it's not my area of expertise. I don't know who should or shouldn't be included. So I'm wondering if there's a way for us to put some type of feedback out there for our community and then pass it directly along to John in a short period of time.
Jason, did you have any comments?
I'm treading very lightly on this since it's my replacement. My only comment would be the more groups you add, the longer the timetable for the search is, and it adds to it. Council, the one good thing about this council is each of the councillors are plugged into a number of the stakeholder groups, including active committees. And there may be consideration that that some of the councillors could maybe bring forward some of the community input into John in a bit more, a bit quicker manner versus an extensive survey. And it might be something that John, you can add some input from the councillors from community subsequent, like a little bit later in the process. If there's anything that comes up, you can maybe adjust some of the input going in a little bit later from the councillors directly.
So I think that's prudent advice, and I like to think that mayor and council are elected to represent the needs of the community to start with. So to me, I think it's great advice, and the way I look at it, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We're looking to basically understand the emphasis of some of your priorities. Like I've read some of your documents, like for example, your strategic priorities 2019 to 2022. If they've substantively changed, then I think it's important to hear that. But if they're reasonably well aligned, we're just talking detail, it generally does not affect the search that much. But it is important to consult. So I think using council as conduit, I think is excellent advice.
Okay. Councilor Martin, go ahead.
Okay, that's good advice. Thank you. So in that case, when I am consulting with stakeholder groups, what are some specific things that I could be asking from them that would be very beneficial and direct for you, so that I'm not incorporating a lot of fluff or information that isn't helpful?
So if you go back to the slide that I have, I don't know if you have the presentation, the one on phase one, it talks about the survey questions, but what I was going to suggest, if we're go ahead in the survey, you'll receive an email from me, and my survey questions are pretty straightforward. The CAO gets there. What are the top challenges for the first 30 to 90 days? And to me, it's a given. You have to get to know staff and mayor and council and form those community relations. Like anything else, it's a burning platform. Hopefully, Jason's done such a good job that there's no burning issues to worry about here, right, Jason? So. And then the next thing I look at is sort of accomplishments. If you're judging the person 1 to 3 years later, and I do have, I joke about this, but I'm not joking. I have long replacement guarantees on my searches, so I'm not in this for the short term. I do want to hear about your longer term priorities, because to me, the right person here would be someone that's going to be putting a stake in their the ground in the house wherever they live now, putting that for sale sign up, and moving to your community and living in this community for the foreseeable future. In my mind, it's 4 to 5 years plus. So hearing those priorities, those 3 to 3 year priorities are really important. And then the other thing I like to ask, and this is probably more for mayor and council rather than community, is are there things that should be emphasized in the job description? Is there a particular skill or attribute you want? Some clients say customer service, other ones say performance management frameworks. Someone else says community engagement. So just hearing some of the emphasis is also useful for me. I'm not saying change the profile because we're not opening up the profile, but we're wanting to listen to emphasis. And then the other thing, I always like to think that we're open to advice all the time. So if someone has another comment, I just say share it and let's hear what it is. So it's really 4 questions. So when you actually see the email, it's a very simple, straightforward template, and I like to not overcomplicate things.
Councilor Martin, your hand's still up. Did you have something else to add? Councilor Van Passen, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I can agree with Councilor Martin. The community input is good, but I thought that was our job. We bring that community input forward. We sit on committees with the BIA. Those kind of people will bring all that to the table. That's not a consultant's job. That's our job. I remember one time somebody told me that a camel is just a horse designed by a committee. Everybody gets what they want, but the end result isn't pretty. And if we start to bring in too many opinions and don't filter it out before we bring it to the consultant, it just it makes the process worse instead of better. So.
Okay. And I like to use the comments like in this particular instance because we are operating on a timeline. I still want to get out of the gate quickly with the search, and then use the comments as we're getting closer to the long list stage to help influence what candidates are going to be the best fit for your municipality.
Councilor Michelle, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I do understand Councillor Martin's desire to have as much input as possible, but I do have a fear, as I think, Madam Mayor, you mentioned earlier, of alienating those people that we, despite our best intentions, exclude in this process and who don't feel that they were consulted and should have been. So that's one risk we take. And I also do have to concur with Councillor Van Passen. In the end, this person is someone we have to work with every day. And I wouldn't want to be in a position where part of our decision was influenced by some group who, after the hiring takes place, has no real bearing on the relationship with that person. So I would, for my own view, I would like to keep that selection and sort of commentary about the CAO or the survey of our kind of desires in a little smaller circle. And so I'm thinking senior staff through perhaps our current CAO, Jason, and council and mayor might be a little more efficient as well. I'm just concerned that we could end up, if we get too many community stakeholders, that we'll be inundated with emails from those groups that feel they weren't consulted. And we ultimately are the employer of the CAO. Thank you.
Okay, so what else do you need from us now then, John?
The only other thing I need to know is who's going to be my point of contact on the search when I have day-to-day questions and updates. Is that going to be Aaron, I'm presuming?
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I wonder if I could just interject. I believe Councillor Columbus has his hands up.
Yeah, I just want to I saw his hand, but I had gone over to John, so we'll go on this and we'll come back to him.
I just need to know point of contact, and then the other thing in terms of the dates, how are we going to establish the dates? Do we want to look at the dates now, or do we want to have someone sort of poll everyone for times and calendars? Because the times and calendars is a very important part of the search. If I don't have this in the next day or two, it kind of impacts the search because everyone just needs to be well organized to know what target dates are.
I think the dates on there, if everybody's in agreement, they all seemed reasonable. And Aaron, are you good with being that point of?
Yes, absolutely. And I can work by getting the dates and getting all the information to John and being that conduit. Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect. And then the only other question I have then, am I okay to send out the survey tomorrow?
It works for, looks like everybody's head's nodding there, so I think that's fine.
And then also, if I give Aaron a copy of the ad later today in draft format, and like I say, it's a fairly general ad. I'm presuming that we could get approval for that by tomorrow and then have it posted by tomorrow. Because it's important for us to start making the calls as well to meet the timelines. We need to be out there in the marketplace.
Aaron, does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely. I've provided John copies of our previous ads, and so he's just making some tweaks to that. If council's okay, if I review it, I can give John the approval to send out, or does council want to review it prior to it being posted?
I'm comfortable with yourself overseeing that. Anybody else have any concerns with Aaron approving that? Nope, I think that's good. Okay, anything else, John? And
I'm just confirming you want me to find you exceptional people.
well,
it's a joke, but it's not.
we're missing the exceptional one, so
Yeah, we have a high bar now, so
that you do.
yeah. Okay, I have a bit of insight in terms of the history, and I think I've met most of the prior CAOs as well. So I like to use, unfortunately, people as benchmarks, and I guess Jason is probably the best out of the group, so he's the benchmark now. So
Harry wasn't too bad either. Councillor Columbus, go ahead.
Yes, John, my question is, if a councillor were to reach out to some of these organizations, which Councillor Martin mentioned, like the BIAs or Chambers of Commerce, what would be the best way to consult with them on input? I'm kind of worried. We have a lot of Facebook groups. I'm not on Facebook, but you know that they could make negativity out of this whole process if it went that way on the concerned residents of Norfolk. And what would be the best way to approach going to one of these organizations to get input?
well, I guess if you have active community groups, that's always becomes an issue, you know. So from my point of view, it gets into consulting one group, and then someone else will feel left out. So my recommendation would likely be not to be calling all the community groups, because then someone will be left out. And then you're going to have a bigger issue to contend with. I like to always think that mayor and council are elected to represent the needs of the community. And if someone has a concern as a citizen, then they should just simply call and voice their concern. That would be my recommendation.
I agree.
Hey, Councillor Michelle, did you have something further, or can we move on to the next item here?
Well, I just want to ask, and I think that I appreciated, John, thank you for illustrating some of the pitfalls of perhaps including too many people, but I'm just wondering, are we going to have an opportunity to have a look at those dates again? I'm not sure, just glancing at them quickly, I'm not sure that I am able to commit to some of them. We'd have to see them again, and I am wondering if there's an option for us to have a time of day that might be a bit easier for members of council to attend. We have 2 people absent today. I'm just hoping that maybe we could do it in the afternoon of those days on most occasions when we have an opportunity. And I'm just thinking about some practical scheduling, that's all.
So I can respond to that one. My hours of work, first off, are from 6 a.m. till about 10 o'clock at night, so I'm pretty flexible. I work weekends as well. So I'm here to work with the committee, whatever is best for you. I'll make sure Erin has the one page with all the dates, and she could recirculate those to you. and then everyone could just offer input as to what works and what doesn't. But assume ultimate flexibility on my end.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, John.
No
Councillor
problem.
Martin, I'm assuming your hand is just still up from prior? It's been up the whole time, so
Yeah, it's on my end down. I've tried
it's down now. Okay. Anything else, John, or?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you. Okay,
Take care.
bye.
Okay, just moving in, we've got the first item, or just one item rather, in closed session. It is an information memo regarding the disposition of property, and we'll be relying on sections 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001 as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. And so if Councillor Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. One further comment concerning the CAO recruitment that I didn't need John on the line for. I had emailed with Teresa and Kevin concerning additional discussion given the direction that we had in closed session, and I was looking for some commentary.
Okay, I think we've just lost quorum here as well. Teresa, is that why your hand's up?
No, sorry, I just wanted to say we need to receive that presentation for information.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Maybe I'm hoping Teresa can chime in. I had sent an email last week concerning some direction that we gave to staff in closed session and concerning the CAO recruitment, and I'd like to discuss that.
Through the mayor, unfortunately, Councillor Martin, we haven't had a chance to review that closed session, but if you give us a few minutes before we go into closed, I can take some time to quickly look at that. I'm just looking at Kevin to see if we can access that. Just let me pull up your email, just 1 second.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll get a motion to receive that presentation as information. I could have a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Michelle, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried.
So sorry, I'm just looking. The one thing I do have to stress is we are in a special council meeting, and the purpose of today was just for the presentation on the recruitment. So that's really the only matter we can discuss at this meeting. Kevin, I will make it a priority to get a response to you, Councillor Martin. And if this is a matter that needs further discussion, I would suggest we bring it to another meeting.
Okay, no problem. Just concerned with the dates and the timelines there. So whenever you have a chance to get back to me, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so again, just a motion then to move into closed session at 11:20 a.m. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried, and I believe another link was just sent out for the closed session, so we'll log off of this one and re-log in with the link that's just been provided to you.
Okay, we are back on, so we can come out of closed.
You're just gonna have a motion to move into open session at 11:47 a.m. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That is carried. And Teresa, if you would be able to read the motion for me from closed session?
Yes. That information memo regarding disposition of lands be received as information, and that with respect to 682 Ireland Road, Simcoe Council directs staff to request the county's external legal services to issue formal correspondence to the original seller's solicitor, and that staff be directed to proceed with requesting final offers for the lands to be submitted prior to May 14th, 2021, and that staff bring a report back with final offers to a council meeting for decision.
Okay, mover and a seconder. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Michelle. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried.
Oops.
And I guess that's all. We'll just need a mover for confirming bylaw 2021-55, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of Norfolk County at the special council meeting held on the 28th day of April 2021, be approved, signed by the mayor and clerk, and affixed with the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks to the rest of staff. And I don't know if that's Jacob in the back there again, but if it is, a big thanks to him as well. Have a good afternoon.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
Goodbye.
Have a good day, everybody.